You can't get all the seasons in one day in this part of Scotland. We could have a shower of sleet, or a shower of hailstones, and then an hour later the sun can be out. It's a gorgeous countryside around here. This is very, very hilly land. You're up in the hills up here. I think it's the water coming off the hills. That's part of the reason there are so many distilleries up in this area, because of the quality of the water. The barley plant, it's a reasonably hardy plant. I certainly do enjoy the thought that this barley might be ended up in a bottle of Balv at some point. I hope it does, and I hope I get the pleasure of drinking some of it.
It's peaceful and it's quiet and it's serene. The Balvenie Distillery is a special place. The pace is slower here, it's just a more relaxed atmosphere.
I like to think Balvenie is different for various reasons. It doesn't seem to move with the times, if you get what I mean.
Describing the character of Balvenie is quite difficult. It's a very warm, friendly place to be.
It's a homely kind of distillery, everybody works together, it's a good team to be working amongst.
It's like a big family, really. I dare say the people I worked with, I probably knew them better than their own relatives.
There's very few distilleries, in fact there's only half a dozen distilleries at the most in Scotland that still do what we do in the malting, germinate our own barley, malt our own barley, dry our own barley. Brings the whole story to life, as it were.
I was one of the youngest ones in here when I first came in here, and I thought, well, if that old lads can do it, so can I. I've been in here, I say 20 odd years, and it's a job I like to do. I wouldn't like to go anywhere else. What goes into this is your water, your barley, a lot of hard work, and some sweat. You're fooling the barley into thinking it's time to start growing. So once it starts to grow, you drop it on the floor, and then turn the floor, and that aerates the floor, lets it cool down, separates the seeds at the same time. Keeping the tradition alive as well, doing it in the floor maltings. Adding that slight taste or taint, it must be something special in it. People are coming from all over the world to buy this product. So you've got to take a pride in that work. It's a craft to get that job right and get the product right at the end of the day. It's fine, it's a fine speed, not too fast.
Today Robbie was teaching me how to turn the floors.
This way a wee bit.
Trying to go in a straight line. With great difficulty I was. Robbie, he's a marvellous mentor. He's a really true maltings man. He cares about the place. He likes to do it the old-fashioned way, the right way, no, not cut corners.
And just watch your elbows when you go by the poles as usual.
Yeah, it's a lot of patience, which you need sometimes for people like me.
You try that.
Okay.
Just try and keep a straight line if you can.
I'll try. My father's been a stillman here, well, it's his actually 40th year, and it was just to follow in my father's footsteps to join the company. And it's just start at the bottom and hopefully work up to a position the same as my father.
This is a long, slow, gentle process. One of my stillmen, Ian Morrison, had his 40-year service, and it's at that point when you realise that actually he was at work here before you were even born.
Right, so where are we on malt deliveries?
You do become a miniature little family. You end up knowing silly things like Gordon puts up he needs a new pair of boots and you already know what size his feet are.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
You kind of get to know them over a number of years. It's definitely a different experience being a woman in charge of a crew of guys. I wouldn't say it's any more difficult or any easier. You just have to wear a different hat.
The other thing I was talking about with Vicky is, are we loading these up a wee bit more?
I think we are, just a wee bit.
Can we just make sure that we load them up nice and healthy?
Right.
It probably is easier to deal with a group of guys because you lose your temper in the morning and they've forgotten about it by half an hour later.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
It's just a case of going up into the steep and shielding the rest down. Right, here we go. Fine and peaceful. When they say there's a ghost in here at night shift, sometimes you hear it, sometimes you don't. You'll see me throwing the steep like this, and it sounds like footsteps walking through the loft. So yeah, we stop me and listen, but nobody there. So they say it's a Balvenie ghost.
My name is Dennis McBain. I started work at the Balvenie distillery in 1958, where I trained as a coppersmith to make and look after copper stills. This is a photograph of me in 1974 being introduced to the Duke of Edinburgh. This fellow here is myself. I was born up in the town of Dufton, just up the way there. My father and three of my brothers worked in industry. That's my father there, Donald McBain. was a lot of fun and a lot of characters going about the place. The work was very hard, far harder than it is now. Automation obviously has a role to play, but there are things that a computer can't do. As long as we make whisky, coppersmith is one of the most important trades in the distillery. For a long time now they've used copper. It's a nice metal to work with. You can virtually shape it into any shape you want. There have been other metals that people have tried to make the whisky in, and it hasn't had the desired effect.
Without the barrel, you wouldn't have your whisky. As I've been here for 45 years, the coopering side hasn't really changed. Okay, we've got some modern technology in there, but the tools that we use are still the same, and the methods are basically the same. Well, I like working with wood. Not only working with wood, you're working with the metal as well. Every barrel's different. You don't know what your next barrel's going to be like. Always been a quick worker. The coopers are always going flat out all the time. Different jobs are different ways of doing things, but we used to be paid by results. The more barrels you'd make, the more money you make at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter the same, but it's hard to slow down, not just the pace that you've been used to. You must be willing to work. You need to be able to be a good worker, good eye, good with your hands, and pride in your work. Yeah. Right, mark the side joint on here. Side joint on here. Working with apprentices, the first few months is quite challenging.
When I first started, that was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Eh? You must be losing weight. Working you too hard.
Ian, he's my mentor and my boss, and he's not a right teacher. Just a bit too fast sometimes. You can't understand him, it's just like lightning, does it?
See, they're quite straight. They're actually made from American oak up ones. So this is European butts, Jason. They've all been filled once. A lot of them been used for the double wood. Enough to see you for the next 45 years, eh?
Yeah. Eventually get through them.
I'll eventually get through them.
My grandfather was a cooper, and my dad was in the business as well. So this is what carried out the family tradition. Started telling me all these stories, what they'd done and all that, so made me even more interested in this. And you're looking forward to the tar and feathers at the end.
So at the end of his 4 years, you'll catch him and pop him inside the cask and tar and feather him with treacle, shaving, just anything that we can find, and just throw at them and roll them about in the cask. Are you again, yeah? I think Jason is quite keen, he's learning well, and I think there is a job here for him if he sticks in the way he's doing just now. Am I proud of what I've done? I think if my mother was still alive, she'd be very proud of what I've achieved in my life, yes, I've worked hard, I own my own house, proud of my family, they've done well. My daughter's a teacher, my son is also a cooper. And I have challenged him for a barrel building competition, but he couldn't have beat me, so he would do it again.
The landscape around Dufton's what they call hilly rather than mountainous. So you've got your rolling hills and your heather hills, which is quite scenic.
When you come over a hill and you see Dufton and the little hollow surrounded by the 7 hills, you know, it pulls a little bit at you because, you know, nice feeling.
There's a good local community and everybody knows who you are and everybody knows your children as well. Your children feel safe.
So how's the sunflower doing this year?
Oh, well,
Eh?
not very good.
So you think it'd be a...
There's no policemen in town. We don't need them.
Well,
That's the weather.
That's the way.
All
Like,
the way.
you can't blame the weather, is you? We've had a lovely summer. We'll see you. Ta-ra.
See you, bye.
It's a quiet village, still a country kind of village yet. Whisky is about the main thing, it keeps the village going. But other than that, the music occasionally, during the summer, the pipe bands, but the distillery keeps the village going.
That little house over there was where it all started. That's where William Grant was born. That's the man who was responsible for the building of Balvenie and the beginning of his story, if you like. Much revered man in Dufton because he was responsible for a lot of employment for 126 years now, I suppose.
The cool, clear water of the mountains. This is the stuff that makes whisky Scotch whisky. And still the same barley grows in Scotland and comes to feed the distiller's art. It comes in bigger quantities because the whole world is thirsty for good Scotch.
Back in those days, it was when the workforce got a glass of whisky before they started work, and one at lunchtime and one when they finished work. The brewer came to me one day, I was about 17 and a half years of age, and he said, come in tomorrow and get your dram. They called it a dram. In the morning, was the people formed a queue, and I just watched what the fellow did in front of me and put in some water. And oh my God, I couldn't speak, could hardly breathe. And it was a good few days after that, the brewer again met me and said, why don't you come back for your dram? I said, oh, brewer. It didn't agree with me. I said, oh, my head was whirling round and round. Oh, nonsense, he says, you'll get used to it. And he was right, you do get used to it.
Dennis.
Oh, did it?
Nice to see you. Hello there.
Good.
How's things? It hasn't changed much at all. I mean, I've often said if William Grant came back here now, he would see very little difference in the distillery. Well, the first thing is the new spirit, when that's really where my role starts, nosing the new spirit that comes off the stills, to make sure that that is consistent and of the right quality. It's just the end of the run, is it?
It's just about the cut-off point now.
Cut off now, okay. New spirit always comes out clear from the stills. I mean, the place where it gets colour is the casks. There we are. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's pretty good stuff. Just what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Malty flavour,
Malty,
rich, complex,
cereal, yeah.
sweet. No, that's fine.
Well, your time will be
exactly
ready.
as it should be.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Okay.
My favourite time here is actually going round the distillery, being in the warehouse, sampling casks. We say that 30% of the flavour will come from the new spirit and the 70% will come from the maturation period in the casks. Initially, after a year or two, it's still quite pale, but as it matures, as it ages longer in cask, the darker it gets. Well, you have to be patient in my role. I mean, everything does take time. Youngest Balvenie is 12 years, so we have to wait in 12 years once the new spirit comes off the stills. I'm not normally a very patient person, but in this industry, you have to. Everything takes time, and that's just the way whiskey ages, the way whiskey matures. Generally, a fairly quiet person, to be fair, and this role of malt master has kind of put me in some kind of pedestal or some kind of icon, and I can't see that in myself. I'm just doing a job. For me, it's just, seems a bit unreal, really.
I think Balvenie has a bit of an emotional catch on you. There's an emotional attachment to this place. There's a quote that has sort of pulled to me quite a lot, is that when you make a piece by hand, you put a heartbeat in it. And I think that's the difference here, is that the team have that passion which puts the heartbeat into what they're doing, and it puts a different angle on craft. It's what they believe in, as opposed to just being something that they do.
It's like a family, in that you don't feel you're on your own. I feel very secure. I hope I've been as good to them as they've been to me.
It is a family company, so we can do things differently. People who come here tend to stay here for a long time because they're well looked after and well treated. It is more than a job. It's a passion, really, I suppose, working with whiskey and working with Balvenie.
Somehow, I don't know what it is, but somehow it just gets that little emotional cling on you. And chop them in half and it says Balvenie.